Hi, everybody. I'm Erika Heald, your Content Chat host. And today we have a very special guest who will be very familiar to you if you've been part of our Content Chat family over the past decade. Michelle Ngome, thank you so much for joining today. And let's take a minute and talk about all the cool stuff you're doing now. Because in addition to the African American Marketing Association, you have a really interesting new job too. So spill some tea with me, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It feels good to be back for the first time, right? So I'm coming back, but first time on video. So I founded the African American Marketing Association in 2019 as a nonprofit for marketers. Um, 2023, November 2023, I started my role as the outreach director for the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program based here in Houston. This program, as outreach director, I recruit entrepreneurs for a 14-week no-cost business program. I work specifically in Houston, but this is a nationwide program. So it's located in 22 other cities. And if it's not in your city, there is an online national program that you can look into.
Well, I love that because, I work a ton with entrepreneurs myself. And I love the fact it's just so great to see a big financial services company actually helping invest in our next, generation of entrepreneurs. So it's fantastic.
Yeah. This program's, at least here in Houston, it's been operating since 2011. And we know that small business is the backbone of America. And it's as a marketer, it's always interesting, because I'm like, a marketing agency is a small business. Like, you belong here, look into the program. It works wonders. I had a conversation with the candidate today, and I'm like, yes, small business is in the name, but this program is going to transform not just your business, but you personally as well.
See, now that's an amazing pitch. And now I'm like, I'm going to go look at this too. Because, well, I've been a business owner for quite some time. I moved to Sacramento in 2019. So, of course, COVID happened pretty quickly after I moved here. And then everything was completely different. So I'm like, I would love to actually get to know more of my
Ooh,
local small business owners.
yeah,
So I'm going to be hitting you up at the end of this conversation for
yeah,
all the deets on the URL. But the reason I have you here today is I know that you, like me, are passionate about content and about helping people understand that content marketing and that whole approach to your marketing is not something that is reserved just for big companies like a Goldman Sachs. It is something that can help businesses at all levels. So, let's just dive right in and talk to me a little bit about how you have been approaching, you know, evangelizing that because again, I think people have ideas about how, oh, it's a big thing. It requires a huge staff, a bunch of money. But at the end of the day, it's like, are you a promotional person in your marketing or are you a helpful person creating content? It's not, it's not about your size, it's about your intentions.
I think Gary Vee spoiled us and he tricked us because he was the first to have his own camera guy. And everyone's like, yeah, I need a camera guy because I don't know how to hold my phone. And yeah, I think that's where it went wrong. Some people are fortunate to have their own camera person, and some of us are crawling. But yeah, content is a lot. Everything is content if you want it to be. If you allow it to be it personal or professional. But yeah, content is really about, I like how you said evangelize. But yeah, it's about advocating for your business, right? It's about advocating for yourself. Um, yes, you can say you're an expert, but how are you going to demonstrate your expertise? And you're going to do that through your content, be it video, written, audio, and you got to get the word across in some shape or form. And I always like to say, play to your strengths. And I knew early on I had a face for radio. So I started a podcast 10 years ago. And, went through I went through those hoops.
And I started a Twitter chat. I mean, I took
Yeah,
over a Twitter chat, so I hear
yeah.
you.
So but yeah, you have to produce content, right? You have to get on board, you, your team, contractor, in-house, however you want to slice it. But everything is content if you allow it to be, but content is the best way to demonstrate your expertise.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like, especially in the early days of starting a business, a lot of times entrepreneurs, they spend all of their energy and put all their resources sort of into the working in the business instead of working on the business. So I'd love to hear your perspective on, where they should really, what they should prioritize and
Um,
focus on in those early stages in order to really start building a growth engine.
yeah, so at AMA, we just started the Business of Marketing Bootcamp. It's a 12-week marketing intensive of small, we have about 15 to 20 small business owners in our program. And last week, we did a training on the marketing mix, the 7 P's of marketing, right? Um, and, I'm going through this and I was like, look, revenue generating activities first. That's what you need to focus on, right? So answer those emails talking about, hey, I'm interested in your service, book those appointments, whatever brings you money, do that first. If you got to put packages together in the morning and go to the post office by 10 a.m., do all of those activities first. Those are always priority, right? And then, in my opinion, I could be biased, but content should probably be your top 3 priorities, right? You got meetings, networking, maybe, and then content. And that's between the content creation and the content marketing, how you want to divide that. Um, and I think lots of times, so going back to our boot camp, when we were taking the applications, everyone's like, I need help with social. I need help with TikTok. How do I create a reel? Da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, cool. Right. But I believe if you grasp some of these foundational elements of marketing, like I'm like, okay, hey, this is your buyer persona. This is your customer avatar. This is your value proposition, or these are the tips to get you to the conclusion of what your value prop is. That's your content for your video, right? So, and
That
when
way
I
you're
was
not just doing those random acts of content because people can get so focused on the tactical, I want to do a thing. It's like, but why are you going to do the thing? How is it going to help
right,
you sustain your business?
right, and what I shared with one of our scholars is the fact I was like, okay, so when we're going through who's your ideal client, and we're like, okay, what is their pain point? Like this is your video, right? This is your copy on your website and your newsletter. Your all of these pain points, you need to speak to that. So it's like, hey, have you she's a financial counselor. So it's like, have you struggled with maintaining your budget? Have you had the challenges of living paycheck to paycheck? Well, my name is da 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 da, da, and I work with high earning millennial women that are looking to save money and prepare for retirement. That's your value proposition. And then you can go into the details of the video, right? So I really think you got to get back to the basics, and those basic elements allow you to create the content that's going to speak to your ideal client.
And I think that's so important because if you don't start with those kinds of, governance foundational elements where you really understand, how you can be of service through creating content and who you're talking to. I don't know about you, but when I hear a business owner say, "Oh, but our audience is everybody," it just makes me want to scream because that means your audience is nobody. No organization, no product is a great fit for every person looking for a solution. That is not true. That's why we have more than one brand of bread at the grocery store, and why we're not all just driving, Ford vehicles anymore. People all have different wants and needs. Um, but I love that you kind of you alluded to just having some of those foundational elements in place first. But once they actually have that defined, their value prop defined, they understand who they're talking to. What do you feel like is sort of the minimum viable content marketing plan? Like, what is the content they should be working on first?
Once again, so it goes back to playing to your strengths, right? So I like to say, pick what your voice would be. So audio, video, written, right? Select your platform, your favorite platform, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, whatever, select your platform. And then from there, I think once you kind of make up your mind, you should just come up with different ideas or topics. And things, it's just a matter of taking the time to write it down, maybe using Gemini, maybe looking at your competitors to see what they're doing, um, and using maybe Google Keyword Planner to kind of hone in on those keyword tools, right? Or what's the best word for me to say this so I can be found in search, right? So those are some of the things. And once you have those ideas down, I'm saying, okay, well, how do I need to formulate this message, right? Now, I don't like teleprompters, but maybe you just need 3 bullet points, right? So for every topic, you just have 3 bullet points, and then you can shoot your video, and record yourself 10 times until until it sticks,
And
right? So those
I'm gonna interject here, and I am so glad you said that because when your typical person who hasn't gone to broadcasting school, when they're reading stuff from a teleprompter, you can always tell because inevitably they trail off on something because it's at the edge of the teleprompter, but it is, there's still another sentence.
guilty.
It's like most of us are not going to ever excel at that. So it makes you look worse reading something and not reading it with the right cadence than you would if you got the gist of it. It's like people can get so obsessed with, oh, I got to stay on message. It's like you got to breathe first. You got to relax and you have to internalize the message and you can get it across in different ways.
Yeah,
It's okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. And if you have time to batch your videos, batch your, just content creation and, drip that out over, maybe 2 videos a week. Excuse me, 2 videos a week, once a week, whatever works best for you. If it's long form, maybe that's once a week. And then you can run those clips through Opus, the AI generator that can chop up your long form clips. So there's a couple of things that you can do.
I love that because, again, folks can feel overwhelmed. But once you kind of get started, then you find that you can do a lot of interesting creative reuse. And I'm a huge fan of that because if you start with video content in particular, then you are able to have little snippets of audio if you want to. You're able to
Yep.
use quotes from the conversations. You're able to get AI transcripts through something like Otter. I get AI transcripts for most of my meetings. It'll summarize things for me for content chat. That's how we get transcripts that we write
Hmm.
the recap from. It's just, it's about being smart with your time because nobody ever has too much time on their hands to do their marketing. So, you got to find those shortcuts that are actually not, detrimental. So I'm a huge fan of the doing that bigger, longer thing first, and then you can dice it up
Yeah.
into the other things that you need to do for sure. So, in addition to just being, a way to get found in search by creating, a compelling web presence and by, showing up for your audience on social, I think you and I have both had the experience that content has really helped organizations I've worked with get rounds of funding or get recognition for various awards like best places to
Mhm.
work and things like that. So I'd love to hear some of the conversations you've had with folks around how content, can do more than just, directly build your business, how it can help in some of these other ways too.
Yeah, that's such a dynamic question. I would encourage people to, you have to be flexible when it comes to ROI, your return of investment. And we know that to be a finance term, so we directly think money, right? So, but as a marketer, we should be very familiar of what the brand ROI will be. So sometimes you have to build yourself up and then you repurpose content, as you go down. I say that to say, as when it comes to I guess, content and funding, there may not be a direct correlation, right? So this particular post may not yield you $1,000 client immediately, but it will come, right? Because once again, it's about building your personal brand, thought leadership, demonstrating your expertise, social proof, enhancing your brand visibility, creating brand consistency. Like, okay, is this the same person from LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok? Or, are you a marketer on LinkedIn and a dating coach at night on, on threads, right? Like,
And
hey,
that,
what's
yeah,
going on?
like you gotta choose who you want to be, and you gotta separate the streams. You do not want the streams to cross.
Like, hey, what's going on here? Right. So, but yeah, I mean, content is there to build your visibility, right? And then what happens, this is funny because with me working with the Goldman Sachs program, when you finish the program, you have a new strategic plan. So your content marketing can go into your strategic plan. So when it's time to, yes, you're going to apply for funding, right? Be it a pitch competition, be it a loan, people are doing a background check, right? We're not talking about them, whether it's employer, FBI, people are going to go through that Google rabbit hole to figure
Yep.
out who you are, right? And you want to make sure that you're in the best position to be a viable candidate. So I'll share this. Um, Alma started in 2019. Um, it's been a lot of growing pains. And I know early on I was ready to quit. I was just like,
It's
it's not
hard.
sticking. It's right. So, and mind you, we turned a year when the pandemic hit. So
Yeah.
I'm in my late 30s. I think the world's about to come to an end. What is a pandemic? Like, and I'm trying to grow something here. And I was on the verge of giving up, looking at this paperwork. I was like, let me just turn this in. And this guy emailed me. He was like, I came across your organization. Are you a nonprofit? And he had all of these questions. I was like, yes, we're a nonprofit. This is the tax ID number. You know, if you want to make a donation, this is the link, right? And then he was like, well, I need to talk to you. And I was like, what can we possibly talk about, right? And I was like, listen, I'm going to this leadership retreat. I really need you to call me right now because I'm not available after this time for the rest of the weekend. And he calls me and he was like, tell me about this leadership retreat. And I was like, I just finished this leadership program, 10 months, closing retreat, all of these things, right? And he was like, okay, well, tell me about Alma. So what is going on here, right? So I tell him about the organization, and he's like, oh, Michelle, you sound like the right person for the job. And our agency, we're based in Tennessee, and every year we do a donation to a local nonprofit. But this year we decided to look in our industry, and our team had a unanimous vote that you should be the recipient of this $100,000 donation.
And isn't that amazing? All your hard work, it was you were an overnight success after a year.
Right? But it's the content. It's the
Yep.
content. It's my personal brand. It's the organization brand. It's me having my business together. It's them
You being
Googling.
helpful every day because I've, known you from social media for a decade, and I see that. You show up
Yeah,
and you are helpful in every interaction you have.
it's, and that's the thing. Like someone can Google you by name or they can Google you by keyword, and you like no clue. I'm getting they did their research, they made their vote. I didn't know what was going on. There was nothing I could do to change I didn't need to change their mind, but like I say that to say there's things that are going behind the scenes that you don't know about
Yep.
because of your personal brand, because of the way you position yourself in your business, because of the information that is available online about you and your business, which is content.
Yep. And I mean, that's the joy and the aggravation, right? About having this kind of approach is that the content, it's not an overnight or an immediate kind of thing, but over time, it shows that you really know your business. It shows, who you actually are. Um, and just brought up, sometimes you have those people that every profile that they have on every different social media platform says they're an
Mhm.
expert in these, 50 different things that any one of us would be lucky to become an expert in one of those things. So, there's a little bit of a hyperbole going on there. But, when you are actually a content creator, you're showing,
Yeah.
not telling people that you are that expert. And so, to your point, especially now with the way people are using AI, they're
Mhm.
going to find out who the actual experts are who can do for them whatever that thing is based on what you've put out there. Like when you publish a case study or when you talk about, how you helped a customer or a client, those kinds of stories that you share, they start to then have that aggregated weight in a way
Yes.
that they really didn't even before.
Yes. 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 And I just want people to understand, like, be patient with yourself. The money will come. Also, the the higher the price, the longer the sales cycle, right? So it's nothing for me to support you when it comes to your $20 book. But if you have a $5,000, $20,000 coaching program or whatever, retainer, whatever, I'm like, okay, I need to think about this, right? And I'm
Yeah,
going to watch that 1 hour live stream to be like, is this my person?
that's
Is
right.
this my person? So yeah, content. There's a correlation when it comes to funding.
And I love this. You have to show your expertise because if you have to tell people that you're so awesome or that you're an expert, then maybe that's not quite true. I love that because, we're marketers and we're content people. We should be able to show our expertise. No matter even, I mean, you're in a highly regulated industry now, yet you're still able to create content and show your expertise. So I'm totally going to start with your permission using you as an example because
Yeah.
I hear lots of excuses, and I was in financial services for a decade at Charles Schwab, and just people always would just be like, oh well, we can't do this and we can't do can't. And it's like, wait a minute, it says who? Why not? You got to start challenging yourself on that. So I mean, I feel like maybe that's one of the big mistakes people make is they start focusing on everything they can't do that someone else is doing. Like they compare themselves to, oh well, I'll never have a million followers on Instagram. And it's like, do you need a million followers? Are there a million people that are going to reasonably want to purchase whatever it is that you have to sell?
Hmm.
So I feel like maybe we can start there talking about some of the ways that people get in their own way. Like one of them is picking unrealistic, goals or benchmarks to compare ourselves with. Because, you know, at my peak on X before I deleted my account last week off of that platform, I think I had like 14,000 something followers, which is nice, but that's not 100,000 or a million. And I never in a million years thought that I would find that many people. I was like, wow, more than 10,000 B2B content marketers. Amazing. Like I was happy with that.
Yeah, that's
But I know
impressive.
other people wouldn't be.
Yeah, I think it's really about how you define purpose and success, right? What kind of business do you want to have? And if you desire a million followers, how are you going to serve those million followers? And what do you want to receive in return, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know autonomy, work life balance, family is important to me. And I don't want to be slave to the social media machine.
Yep.
I'm still a pretty private person. I don't want to be a slave to my phone, feeling I have to record because if I don't record, they're
You
asking
lose
me where's my
followers.
live, right? And I'm losing an endorsement or a brand deal because I didn't hit, the 7 recordings a week and engagement. Like,
Yeah.
those are things that you have to consider. I mean, even me as a nonprofit that's always seeking out sponsorship dollars, like people want to know, like, what are your numbers? What's your engagement? And the higher your numbers are, there's more responsibility, there's more pressure to perform.
Yeah.
So I think you have to understand, I think, what you want. And I forgot the name, Kelly, A Thousand True Fans. There's some truth to that, you know, and even if you take that into milestones and have a building block, like, how can you serve these 100 people, right, online? And okay, well, I want 250 people by the end of next month. Great. How can you serve them? How can you be consistent in that process? It's really important and not to be underestimated.
Totally agreed. So we get in our own way. We have unrealistic expectations. I think maybe one of the other things I see a lot is people feel like, oh no, I have to do this forever now. I can't just do content like at the holidays because I like holiday content. I can't just do it, once or twice a year. I think maybe that's another one of the biggies is that folks aren't necessarily understanding what it means to commit to content.
It's a lot of work. Like, I mean, listen, some of these creators, I love when a creator is honest about them taking a break, being burned out. Like, this looks fun, but when you quit your job and you turn this into a full-time business, whether you have an actual business or you're a content creator as a business, um, you need a schedule. Just like you have a schedule at a 9 to 5, you need a schedule within entrepreneurship. Whether you're creating content 4 hours a day or for 40 minutes, you need a schedule, you need a process. Hopefully you can grow into having a team. Like, what does that look like? And if you have a team, you need to create a job description, right? Like, this can
Yeah.
be a real job if you want it to be, if you want to be successful, if you want to make money, if you want to be organized and professional and get brand deals. Yeah.
So when you're work with the program, when you see folks kind of working through the curriculum, what are some of the stumbling blocks that they kind of run into when they're putting together their marketing plans or their content ideas?
For the Goldman Sachs program or for
Mhm.
AMA?
For the Goldman Sachs program.
For Goldman Sachs, so Goldman Sachs is a 14-week no-cost business program. So we have classes on money metrics, which is about financial statements, growth opportunities, HR, leadership, sales and marketing. We partner them with a business advisor, and then at the end of the program, they have a strategic growth plan. So the most common would definitely be financials, right? Just the organization of financial statements, balance sheet, income statement, things of that nature. Um, but I would say the second most common problem is, I would say, HR, hiring slash retaining, building a team, all of that kind of
Yeah.
goes in together. Those are the most common problems. So for me, I take a lot of pictures of the activities that we do in class. So people can see group activities, pretty much you're
Yeah.
bonding with these 20 to 30 people in your cohort. I don't do a lot of video, just because I do feel like this information can be sensitive. It's a
Yeah.
very intimate space. Entrepreneurs are already challenging. So I want to be respectful. So I
Yeah.
don't do a lot of video in class, unless we're celebrating something, graduation, just having a good time type of thing. But that's what, or let me say, we have a curated video. But and I'll share those things in the newsletter, because business, like, we love business, but it can be boring. It's like, not another business program, not another business class. I don't want to do that. So it was like, how can I make this fun? Like they're at the whiteboard, they're brainstorming, like, ooh, you know. So I try to show the fun aspects of the environment online.
I love that. And then it also, by them seeing that content that you're creating and sharing out to them, it helps them understand this is stuff that they can do in their own business. Because I
Hmm.
think so many people learn through doing and they learn through examples. So by going through this kind of a program and, having content start to be something that's just ingrained in this kind of a setting, I think then can kind of model that for folks who aren't, geeks that have been writing since, grammar school and who always, knew that they're going to do something involving that. Because you can forget when you're a marketer, especially when you're a content marketer, that there are plenty of people out there who have never thought about the phrase content marketing.
Yeah. And then sometimes it's like, how do I apply this to my business? So, like the last cohort, we have a gentleman, he has a bed bugs business. So all he does is get
And
rid of bed
unfortunately, that
bugs,
business is booming, I bet.
right? And he's like, I don't do pest control, nothing but bed bugs, right? So then it's like, well, that's not sexy. Like, like
It's
so
like
then
an
it's like
emergency situation.
so what am I gonna post? What am I gonna market? How do I market? And I'm like, dude, this personality, you need to do skits. He's like, what? You need to do some skits. You got all these kids, you got get them to work, right? I don't know how, but he has the personality to do some skits. Just cleaning the house, not cleaning, like I don't know. So once again, it's playing to your strengths, and it's not just the audio or video, but it's like who are you as a person? The people on your team, what are they good at? You know, what does creative look like? Now we say creative, we're thinking about graphic and web design, but who can transform your office and y'all can go in there and do a skit?
Because can't you imagine, like, just you talking about this gentleman and that he has all these kids? I'm like, I could see them, doing a video where they're driving down the street and the kid says, "Hey, Dad, let's pick up that chair." And Dad's like, "No."
See? See, there you go. And I mean, that's the genius of marketers, right?
Right?
But yeah, I mean, and what? That's 30, 60 seconds,
Exactly.
you
And then it
know?
shows you that he's, yeah, he'll help you when that becomes, something that happens to you. When you come home to the kid brought in a piece of upholstered furniture that he found on the side of the road, and now you got a problem. Because
And
that
you
is
know,
exactly how that stuff
and
happens.
that's so common. Like I live in an apartment. I just because I'm about to move, I threw some stuff away and like I don't know. I had to go around. And by the time I went back, I was like, why is that chair gone? Like my
Mhm.
computer chair?
Oh, yeah. I lived in San Francisco, and we would joke about it. If you wanted to get rid of something, you didn't call a truck to pick it up. You just pushed it out front of the apartment building. And, we had a little free table. Anything you didn't want, you put it on the table, and it would just vanish. It's amazing. Until one day we had actually a sofa in the lobby there, and it was next to the free table, and somebody got the wrong idea, and it vanished too. So you have to be careful about these things.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, how can you make your industry fun and possibly sexy, right? Like,
Yes.
how can you bring your personality out? Because, all content doesn't have to be boring.
Because at the end of the day, no matter what it is you're selling or who you're selling to, you're still a human being and you're selling to other people, and they're choosing you to be that person that they work with and that they give their money to. So whenever you have an opportunity to show your personality and show what makes you different, to show, that you have empathy for them, that's how people decide that they want to work with you, or that they decide you're too weird for me. Like, my office here and my zoo of animals that have come in, and out as we've had this conversation. Some people will be like, she is just not corporate and professional enough for me. And that's fantastic because I'm not anymore. I am so over that.
Mm,
And I don't want to attract those people into my business. I'm not a good fit for that.
Yeah,
So, it's all about the attracting into your business the right customers for you because, you know, that's so important, especially when you're starting out.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So, when you're kind of just getting started with content marketing, so like if what are some of the resources and tools that you recommend that folks look into?
So I am a fan of Gemini. And for me,
And
I,
that's Google's AI tool.
yes, Google Gemini over ChatGPT for me. And what I like about Gemini is, for me, I feel like it provides better sentence structure, or it provides me with more cohesive writing for my content, especially the long form content, web, email, cold emails, newsletters, things of that nature. So yeah, Google Gemini. I just love Google products. Very biased on that as well.
I like that you mentioned emails because I'll tell you my least favorite thing that I ever help clients do is helping them with emails. So I love to use AI to help me think about what are some ways to approach whatever the topic is via email and use that to get some ideas started because not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. And I use Grammarly too, obviously for
Same.
grammar, but it's something about how I can just sometimes bullet point my ideas or the actual paragraph and just put it in Gemini and it sounds so much better. Right. So I'm grateful for that because I know I have the ideas and I know I have good content, but I always need to work on my written communication. So um, I allow Gemini to be a proper crutch. Right?
A partner, an intern.
Yes, yes. Thank you. I mentioned Opus Clips for long form video content, chopping that down. AMA, we had our summit. We have our annual summit. So I like to use that for new clips, old clips, kind of shows what we're doing. Um, Content Marketing Institute, right? Bunch of resources. They just dropped their survey not too long ago. So that's another idea of I guess long form written content that can be broken down into pieces through social media, IG carousel, or just individual posts over time as well. So those are usually my go-to resources when it comes to marketing content or content marketing.
I agree with all of them. They're great. I mean, and I think they're really fantastic for getting your feet wet because, Content Marketing Institute, basically at this point, they've created an encyclopedia of content marketing. It's kind of amazing. And we just got a little feedback about Opus Clips.
Yeah.
So let's dive in a little bit. So first, I'm seeing, okay, so hit or miss. And do you have any, do you feel like it's always hit or miss, or has it just been certain things? And maybe what has your experience been too, Michelle? Like, does it always kind of give you what you need, or do you need to kind of already have some ideas in mind?
I will say this for a long form copy, the what I've done, if I have a 45-minute video, it's good to spit out probably 7 to 10 1 minute clips, right? But from that, I may only use 2 to 3,
Oh, okay.
right? Um, some clips have repeated, right? So sometimes you can kind of get duplicate or the content is overlapping depending on the start and stop point. So I guess it's just a preference. I think the reason why I'm not held up on using all 10 clips is because I feel like over time the consumer would get tired of seeing that one person or that same clip
Yeah.
because of the background. They're like, oh, I've already heard this before, right? So I just try to do 2 to 3 and have it spaced out. But listen, this is a lot better than me listening to the 45-minute clip and trying to timestamp it.
And then go in and edit manually, making copies and cutting and
So that in itself is a win.
I think the other tool that you could use for this, but it's not necessarily going to generate the ideas for you for what is you could obviously use Descript. So that way you could go in and pull out those, short little snippets from the transcript. Descript is super easy to use.
I've heard
Um,
good things about the script. I just haven't utilized it fully.
yeah, I had a client who was doing customer case studies, and that's how we put together some of the case study interview videos. So we would
Mm.
go and we would start with that, and so then we would still hand it off to a professional to polish it and add the title and all that kind of good stuff and music. But we did the actual video cutting ourselves in there, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think in general, a lot of these tools can get us pretty close to where we want to go, but we still have to do some tweaking because
Yeah.
they're not amazing yet. They're still very good, but they're
Yeah.
not like, oh, it's like you hired somebody.
Yeah, and you have to be careful. You want to remove some of the uhs and ums and stuff like that, and make sure things are spelled correctly. So, and even then, there's times when I've used either Opus or CapCut, and I was like, I just can't catch everything. So, and it's annoying. It could be slightly embarrassing too.
I totally feel that because I know we all have verbal tics that even though we try to stamp them out, we all have things we do. Um, I do occasionally, and I certainly you can tell I'm from California because there are some of those things kind of creep in. Now, something I also want to talk to you about because this is something else we share. So while I've not ever founded my own association, I headed up membership marketing, communications, and publications at the Northern California Human Resources Association for 3 years. And I've had a number of membership association clients as a result because I
Hmm.
love, figuring out how do you engage people throughout the organization for, being content creators and all that kind of good stuff. And so, as such, I've always been a member of, a number of membership associations that are profession related. So, over the years, I've been a member of IABC, of PRSA, of ASAE, which is the Association for Association People. In all of those kinds of situations, especially early in my career, I found so many great resources. I found, mentors. I found local resources. So I'd love to hear from your perspective how entrepreneurs can connect with organizations like AMA to, really get better at doing things like marketing to their audience and, start to build that peer network in order to just make things go more smoothly.
Yeah, associations are so important. They're so vital to professional success in general. Um, and of course, there will be some personal benefits, long lasting friendships. One of my best friends, we met 11 years ago serving on the board. And the funny thing was, not that we had problems, but we weren't friends right away. We eventually became friends, but that's where we met.
Yeah,
And then you get to see someone's work ethic, and it's like you admire them from a distance, and then one day it clicks. That conversation is like,
yeah,
or hey, let's go for lunch. And that's what happened. If we were like, Michelle, I see you doing a lot of stuff, what are you working on? you know and we had a good lunch. I was like, you know what, you're going to be my new best friend. Right.
and it makes sense because when you are part of an association and you're working towards common goals, you're going to have things in common.
Yeah.
So it totally makes sense to
Yeah.
me.
No, but associations are important, right? One thing that we do at AMA, and just my life in general, whether it's AMA or Goldman, what I'm starting to say now is I provide resources for small business owners, right? So I have Goldman Sachs, the business program, I have the association, and we have monthly programming. So we're talking about any topic within the industry. We have guest speakers coming through. We have a partnership with Google and the certifications that they offer. So if you're a member, you get free access to that, whether it's project management, UX design, AI, etc. Um, we have our summit, we have our job board. So there's a ton of in-person and virtual networking opportunities that are available as long as you tap in. And I encourage entrepreneurs to do two things. One, find and participate in the industry based association so you can learn, right? So you can stay abreast of what's going on in your industry. You can partner, contract. Um, you just have that good group of people that you're working with. And then find whoever your client, your target audience, ideal client is, find that industry association. Where are they? And tap into that as well,
Yep.
right? Um, so I used to say when I had my own marketing consulting practice, I'm like, okay, if I want to work with lawyers, I need to find the legal association, because the chances are when I go to an event and there's 50 people in the room, there might be only 3 to 5 that are marketers,
Yep.
right? And I'm in front of my target audience. Maybe I'll get to speak, I'll network. So I would encourage Mark all entrepreneurs really to do that, so you can grow personally and professionally, and then the opposite, so you can actually grow your business as well.
And I mean, the other benefit is then you get to really deeply know and empathize with your audience, with your ideal customers, because you'll be hearing them. They'll be
Yeah,
sharing,
that's a good
in
point.
a really candid way. And it allows you also to kind of test your messaging. If you're at a networking event, you literally can use it as a testing your messaging, a few different ways of expressing what it is that you do and how you serve other people, and see what gets people excited and what gets people saying, "Oh, my phone's ringing, excuse me," as they back away slowly, Homer Simpson like into the bushes. So I mean, I love that too, and I say that as an introvert. So it's like I do not love going to networking events, but if I'm going to go to one, I am going to make sure that I'm like testing out a few things.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any examples of maybe some entrepreneurs that you've either worked with directly or that you just kind of bring up as examples for folks that go through your program as being really like good examples of doing it right when it comes to creating really compelling content? 'Cause you mentioned Gary Vee, and I mean,
Ooh.
his original story is amazing, that he's just had this family wine business and would create these great wine videos and then grew into something completely different.
This is a good question. I can't think of anyone in our Goldman Sachs program off the top of my head right now. But I think one of my favorite stories, when I did have my marketing business, um, I worked with a lady who was a nonprofit founder, um, CSTEM, so science, technology, engineering, math, for students, high school, middle school kids, and well recognized in the Houston area. She's been recognized by the Obama administration. So it's like, ooh, it's a big deal. And I did a podcast interview with her, and great interview. And she was after the interview, she was like, "I think I want to start a podcast." Like, of course you do. And mind you, this was
You're like, I made it look so easy, didn't
yeah,
I?
right. This I don't know what year was this, 2016, 17 or whatever. And she was like, "No, I'm serious." And then I was like, "All right." So we actually had an in-person meeting, and she was like, "I have this grant." She's like, "I need to pitch this grant. Can you help me with the podcast?" So I was like, "Okay, cool." So I did a checklist, kind of help with some of the content when it came to submitting the proposal. and she won the grant from Verizon. So I was the producer of her podcast for about
That's so cool.
2 years, right? And like once again, that's the power of content. Kind of going back to an earlier question of funding, right? You don't know where this money, this opportunity is going to come from, and it just solidified her expertise. Um, so I would say that's definitely a highlight. Um, I think now I was talking to a candidate earlier today for the Goldman Sachs program. And it's always good when you're going to get into something. He's like, "Well, how soon can I post it on LinkedIn?" I was like, "Well, you got to get accepted first. But it's part of the social proof, right? It's part of the social proof of, I'm serious about this entrepreneur journey. Um, I want to plant that seed so you can look into this program. It's so many things. Oh, I have a tip I want to share. So we spend a lot of time talking about creating content, right?
Mhm.
But I always encourage people, um, be a guest. Be a guest on shows like this. It takes a little bit less effort.
It's easier to just show up and chat.
If you feel like you want to be a talking head without any work, be a guest on a show. But seriously, if you're serious about being a guest, right, you just can't wait for opportunity to present yourself, get your stuff together, pitch yourself to these hosts, to these shows as well. Even if you send out 3 to 5 emails a day, and you're a guest on these shows, as for the recording, you can create your opus clips from these long form shows as well. So this being a guest on a show is another way to create content.
That's so smart because, again, you have that conversation, you get the recording, you get the transcript, and then you've got the basis for creating an ebook or creating 3 blog posts. Because if you talk for an hour, you're going to get into enough juicy bits that you have a bunch of different content you can create out of it.
Yeah,
And now you got quotes from someone else that you can include too.
that's what I did. My first book was called Network, Navigate, and Nurture. Came out September 2014. And I started promoting that through podcasts. And then people told me I needed to have my podcast. And I don't like to think. So I called it Networking with Michelle because that was my brand at the time. And after I locked in about 60 to 70 interviews, and I used those interviews to write my second book, Success Undefined, right? And then all of my guests had a quote in that book,
That's awesome.
right? So yeah, content is how I built my brand. And I was not afraid to pivot. So I started off as like a networking queen. And then someone was like, "Well, Michelle, how did you build your personal brand?" And I was like, "Oh, these are the 7 tips to build your personal brand." I did that for about 2 years. Um, and then now I got Alma, small business marketer. I provide resources for small business owners.
I just love that journey. And it's a good reminder that the thing that's so cool about when you do have content be a core part of your business plan, not an afterthought, but it's something that's actually really, truly part of the way that you go about doing business. You don't know where that journey is going to take you because it opens up
Yes.
possibilities to you that build upon your business or help that business expand versus, doing promotional sales and marketing that is
Mm.
just focused on selling whatever that one thing is that you have. Content can really be, and this is something Carlos Abler talked about 2 months ago, I think, on the chat. It can actually be that innovation engine within your company that can take you someplace completely new. I mean,
Yeah.
in 2014, would you have thought you were going to
Oh,
found a membership association?
not at all. 24. Listen, every day I'm trying to eat. That's all. And once a week I want some steak.
See, and that's why I pivoted from journalism to marketing, communications, and
Mhm.
content. Yes,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah,
that.
oh man, it's been a journey. I've been blessed. Thank you.
Well, as we wrap up here, where can folks go to learn more about the Goldman Sachs program that you're working on, and about AMA? Because we need all the URLs, all the deets, so that way people now they're fired up that they can go out there and get started.
Yes, please, please, please look into the Goldman Sachs program. We need more marketers, agency owners in the program, okay? And of course, I am biased. So please go to 10ksbapply.com. That's 10ksb, smallbusinessapply.com. And it will give you all of the details about the program. It will show you a map to see if one's in your local area. If not, you can apply to the online program. And then for AMA, it's aa-ma.org. And then you can follow me on LinkedIn, which is my favorite platform.
Same.
Yeah.
It took over. It took over where the other place where when the bird flew away, it took over.
That's a good one.
I just thought of it right now, talking to you.
When the bird went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
And on that note, thank you so much for being my guest and for giving everyone an awesome giggle at the end. Well, take care, and everyone, we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.